Okay, just a quick unboxing video of some idea card reorders. We've seen a lot of these here before, and there's nothing new, but sometimes I haven't placed an order in a while, and there might be a card in here or two that I haven't printed in a while, and I just want to point some things out in these ones. This one's a really nice die cut by I don't know what company. I don't know. Die Zizix. Okay, great leaf here by Anna Karin in Sweden. A really great format here, and she always takes such great photos of her pieces too. So I don't know. I love different formats, than the standard card size. I'm always working in quarter page, half page, vertical, horizontal, but these die cuts really give a nice kind of fresh format to the genre of scenic stamping, and something like this leaf here is perfect for scenic stamping. Really ties in with the whole autumn theme of this, and then she used the autumn as the second spring when every leaf is a flower by Albert Camus. So a really great thematic format there on that piece. More dynamic, I would say, than certainly a rectangle piece. I don't know, I need to change my formats around once in a while. Maybe get some kind of something that could cut ovals and rounds. This has always been one of my favorite pieces, done a long time ago, and it's using the shagbark hickories and the two different sizes. You can use the same size, but just use kind of a smaller portion of it. But this one is really where I was kind of playing around with the ghost impressions of it, where I, take a stamp it out. Or, now, on these ones right here, I didn't do that. I was thinking I stamped it out once and then I stamped it again, but on this one right here, I specifically colored these ones, these smaller shagbark hickories in the distance right there, and then I blotted them first, and then I took that and went for the second impression of it, hoping to get a much lighter version of it. And then these ones right here, I can tell I didn't just ghost it and then ghost it again, because that one has a different hue. It's more yellowish right here. So on these ones right here, where they look even farther back in the distance, I probably stamped it and maybe I got more ink off and then ghosted it, ghosting meaning, getting that second or third impression of it. But that one way in the back might be the third impression of this one. I bet you this one's the second impression after I blotted it. I don't know if you can really tell on the video here, but that one's probably the third one. Tons of white pigment ink to kind of, kind of eradicate the rough patches and where some images didn't go together very well. White pigment ink and kind of a fogging kind of application is a great remedy, and it hides all of my kind of weak areas within my scenes, and it looks good too. So I'd always recommend it to you for, if not one reason, for another. One of my favorite little scenes and compositions that I did way back when I did this kind of this hang glider, flight at night, which no one would ever do, due to safety reasons, but I always liked the way it looked. And this one's probably the second one that I did. The original one was done for a Rubber Stamp Madness ad, but I don't know, it always gives me this, kind of interesting mood having something like that, the spirit of, I don't know, kind of like, noiseless flight, and I don't know, taking it into the night air, kind of pushing that kind of spirit to another level. At least in theory. I'm not I don't hang glide or anything like that, but one of my favorite types of scenes to do, the Northern Lights and Aurora Borealis, and I just happen to really love this kind of color scheme right here with the emerald greens, but if you notice there's kind of this more earthy green in there, and that's with the use of brown, so I always like to run brown tones in my greens, just to kind of get away from kind of a more neonish, you know, kind of a color scheme, which will happen if you just only use various shades of green. It's so bright and, I don't know, kind of neonish looking. This scene here is always one of my favorites by Chris Fitzgerald in Texas. She's a really great painter and artist and, you know, watercolorist and whatnot, but she really takes that spirit and she applies it into her stamp scenes, where this really has some really fantastic blends of different colors around it. It looks real watercolorish, or very painterly, as we used to say in illustration classes. But just a really fantastic spirit to this one. I'm not sure if this one has the original size. I don't see the original size on this, but it's fairly large in format. Maybe a half page. Of course, reduced down for the purpose of this idea card, just to get it in there. I get these cards from Vistaprint. You might see their commercials. There's probably other places to get them these days, but I don't know, I have all my files up there, so it's easy to just reprint. But Darcy Bruno, really fantastic. What we call photo stamping, taking a photograph and printing it out and stamping it over with imagery, and there's all kinds of different applications of photo stamping these days. You know, you can take additional inks and apply it, and there's some people who have taken photo stamping into a kind of whole other level of I don't know, as far as the technique, or I don't know, whatever that genre of scenic stamping goes. You know, you've seen some really amazing pieces and applications. This one right here was the scene that I've done in the past on another video, just taking a matte black cardstock and stamping over it in white pigment ink. And I like to go with images that are a little bit kind of bolder and can be used individually. And I think it works great for things like trees, and here's a couple different types of trees in here, just to kind of, at various heights, just to give it some variation where it doesn't look like the same trees used over and over again. And then just taking a white gel pen in here and to kind of add in some additional value and texture into my trees to make it look like snow or something like that, or ice on the trees. Back in the distance to add stars, and then a little bit more pigment ink over one of the stars, just to kind of go along with the quote there. I don't know, first star I see tonight. There's a lot of stars in here, but I wanted to just kind of bring out one of them in a little bit more of a glowing type of look, to kind of illustrate the quote a little bit more. And I always like this tropical one. Just I don't know, just in terms of the color scheme and the lightness of it, I guess. And the big heavy trees here, just to kind of I don't know, balance out these people down here. It's a lot bigger right here, but in terms of a kind of a visual kind of anchor point, people always draw the attention much, you know, more so, I would say, from an emotional kind of weight, more than, say, a visual one. They kind of balance each other off nicely. Okay. I didn't have time to do some new postcards to format them because I've been drawing so much, and when you get on a roll, when I get into that mindset, I try to just really focus in on getting as many designs out as I can. I don't know, maybe it's getting my brain hemisphere working or something like that with the creative type of process. The groves were God's first temples. That's from the Scenic Sentiment series. This is by Lizzie Giggs, really fantastic. Store owner and stamper and card maker, etc., etc., etc. But one stamp right here. But look how beautiful this card is. Really amazing. I've never formatted any of my cards, but here we go with the oval again, right? Doesn't that look fantastic right here? She could do a fantastic job with a rectangular one, but just this format right here, and there's those little embellishments right on there. Just really fantastic use of a single stamp scene, which ideally you can get with any stamps you might use. I try to design them where they can be used individually as well as in conjunction with other stamps within the series and other companies' designs. Maine Woods by Richard Goulet, mainly stamps. I don't think they're still around anymore, but that was a store in Maine, but really fantastic scene. And I really like how we use the pond and this cricket path back here as a waterway, you know, to create this kind of flooded forest in here. Really kind of nice, light, airy feel to it. And there's those cloud cumulus in the background. You wouldn't even need to mask off these trees because that cloud is so light in value. You can just stamp it right over your trees and it won't really show up in those trees at all. So really fantastic scene by him. And that was back in, I don't know, do I have the date on that one? Quite some time ago, 2009. Hard to believe. One of my favorite trips of all time. Well, I enjoyed, I think, my 2 trips out to Maine, but my second trip, unless I went out there 3 times, and hiking all over Acadia. If you're watching this, you're probably somewhat of a scenic stamper, but and if you like scenery, get out to Maine and Acadia during peak color, as they call it. This was a scene that I did for a lesson called The Value of Value on StampersQuest.com. They're not around anymore, but I talked about, and I redid this scene on another video on this channel, and I talked about varying the use of lights and darks within each object within your space or scene. Okay, so the sky is light and dark, the mountain has lights and darks, the cabin has lights and darks, and this area of grass right down here has lights and darks. Okay, and when you do that, you really can kind of turn your objects in space and making them look a little bit more dimensional, rather than, say, looking at these spaces as something to color in uniformly. Okay, so in other words, just don't do so much coloring. You know, this is not harder to do, you just don't color as much. A lot of times when people are first starting out, they're looking at these objects as like a kind of an extension on like a coloring book. So they'll color something in very uniformly. This is all brown, Kevin's, you know, uniformly brown, and this area down here is just all the same value of green. But it's not a harder thing to do, it's an easier thing to do, okay? All you have to do is just vary it a little bit. Take a look at the designs and you'll see some shadows drawn into the designs, and all you do is you take your darker colors and you darken the darker areas within those designs, okay? And well, this down here is, you know, this is just grass. There's not going to be shadows inherently on there, but what I like to do is I like to add shadows at the base of things like trees. So instead of taking this green, darker green, and just coloring in that whole area, you just kind of put it on the outside edge. And that's what gives it kind of a more, I don't know, sophisticated look in terms of your lighting scheme, but it really entails less work than to color the whole thing in, because you're not coloring in everything uniformly and fully. You're coloring in less. You're just hitting the shadows, okay? Here's another one just like the this right here, okay? But the difference is, in this piece right here, I used one of those old rub-on stars. I think it was from my either Letra set or Chartback, if anyone recognizes those names of those companies, but that's just kind of a rub-on lettering. Not lettering, but I don't know, what they call them, a dingbat or something like that. These little icon types of things. I think they still sell them too. I think I saw them at the store. Those little rub-on things that you can. There's a lot of lettering that you can get. Another Anna Karenina piece right here, and again, look at the matting that people do on these, or the card formatting, you know, to go along with this quote right here. Single stamp, no, 2 stamps, okay, the bird's in the background, but look at that beautiful formatting of this and how effective that is in terms of giving it this kind of antiqued feel. Just really amazing. And single stamp, you know, but has everything that you would want in a scene, you know, in terms of different values and kind of the vignette, space, everything like that, sense of space and whatnot. Really fantastic pieces. I need to get a bunch of my cards in there. I don't know. I was thinking about putting a post on some of those card making websites to see if someone wants to do like a collaborative piece, and I'll do the scene and they can format it and see what we can come up with. But here's one of my favorite, I don't know, not really terribly recent, but relatively recent in terms of some of these cards are really years old, but this one I think I did last year. I think I did it around this time when it was really hot. I wanted to do the coldest scene that I could possibly do. This is a half page right here, but kind of you do things in a blue color scheme and it either becomes night or it becomes winter, usually. That's what it tends to look like. I could do a tropical scene in this color scheme and it would look like, you know, the Arctic hit, you know, Tahiti, you know, meets the Arctic or something like that. But kind of doing these little wisps right here gives this feeling of, I don't know, to me, wind or some kind of, like a blizzard or something like that. And I hit it with some additional, I don't know if you can see it here, some additional splatter painting. That's not all a bunch of white gel pen dots. It's more of a, you know, a toothbrush like this with some bleed proof white and just kind of splatter painting it like that. Hitting all that area up there, giving it a really cool feel, and I have a feeling that I'll probably be doing another one of these very cool temperature scenes pretty soon because it's really super hot lately, approaching August in California. So anyway, all right, so that's another box of some idea cards that will be going out with orders and whatnot. So some decent selection of some samples for people to reference and to possibly get ideas from or to inspire and whatnot. All of these scenes can be seen on the various Pinterest and Flickr and YouTube channel, videos, pages, etc. But sometimes it's nice to have a kind of a hard copy of something like this in hand. They're not always going to be, you know, the same size that they were conceived in, but you know, the color schemes are really close enough to, you know, what they look like on the originals. So anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.